Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, they say that if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. And with the One Piece world the way that it is, the Void Century, history literally destroyed, erased, I guess they're doomed. But there is a really weird way to take this. We'll come back to this later. I think you guys all know that the island that can't be found is Laugh Tale. Or to go full Pirates of the Caribbean, an island that can only be found if you already know where it is. And of course, one of the main questions that you ask when talking about the island that can't be found is, why can't you find it? Obviously a log post doesn't point there, but there's other islands that can be found that have the same issue. Zo is a great example of this. Of course, it's stated that you need a Vivre card to find it, but I think the Vivre card is most important simply because the island moves. If Zo had some sort of fixed location, a log post didn't point there, you could still find it. And although it would be difficult, you certainly could stumble upon it by chance. I think that generally you can like the thought that Laugh Tale is perhaps underwater, flooded, like the lost city of Atlantis, or up in the clouds. It's Laputa. But this has already been done before. We've been to Fishpond Island, we've been to the Sky Islands, and yes, they can be found. Even though it may be difficult, just by random chance or luck, you can come across these places. There was a great theory by Uteron, which I think has become one of the more popular ones for where Laugh Tale is, basically inside of a whale. Laboon at the beginning of the Grand Line was foreshadowing because you could get swallowed by Laboon, and inside his stomach there was literally a small island. And they are literally called island whales. And we see a whale tree on top of Zo, and there's just whale foreshadowing around, and it's curious. There's more evidence, but the potential problem with this theory, why it doesn't necessarily make sense, is it's been explained to us that on the road poneglyphs, which are needed to find Laugh Tale, coordinates are written on the poneglyphs themselves. You take each of the 4 road poneglyphs, the coordinates that they point to, and that will tell you where Laugh Tale is. So if these coordinates are literally written into stone and can't be changed, then the location of Laugh Tale can't change. As in, the island doesn't move. It's not within a living creature, unless you get into some shenanigans like the poneglyphs point to not only a specific location that you can find Laugh Tale, but the time that you find it. And even as I say this now, it doesn't make sense, because if this is, for instance, part of like some sort of prophecy, right, that it's all leading to Luffy being the one to find Laugh Tale here now in the present timeline of the story, so the poneglyphs point to a particular location for a whale, for instance, right in a couple weeks, then Roger wouldn't have found the island using the road poneglyphs. The location would have been incorrect. But you can add more shenanigans to potentially try to make it work, like the whales reconvene every 24 years to the same exact location. Then it just feels overly complicated to me. It doesn't leave you with that same satisfying feeling about the mystery. Or maybe there's another step that we don't know about. You have the 4 road poneglyphs, they point to a particular location on the sea. You go there and it tells you, look, Laugh Tale is within a particular island whale. So you have to go seek this whale out. This also feels a little bit overcomplicated, and at the same time you still have a question about an island that can't be found because the road poneglyphs point to a particular location with a clue of how to find the One Piece, so you gotta stop people from finding the final clue, thus making the journey for the 4 road poneglyphs essentially useless for anybody who happens to stumble upon it. So I'm not saying that this idea that Laugh Tale can be found within a whale is impossible or can't happen, but certainly there's things that can be questions. And it feels to me like we might be still missing something. And this leads into another popular speculation over the years, that Laugh Tale can be found on the moon. My main issue with this is that Laugh Tale should be an island, right? An island is a very particular occurrence. It's a small mass of land that sits on water. This can be the water of the ocean, this could be the sea of the Sky Islands. All of that works for me. What doesn't work is if an island exists on the moon. Or you have an island in space. An island in space is an asteroid. Some other really good theories about Laugh Tale have the island essentially within the Earth to various degrees. It could be like the center of the Earth itself, maybe, or more commonly, perhaps within Reverse Mountain. X marks the spot is definitely one of my favorite theories ever. If you look at any map of One Piece, Look at Reverse Mountain, X marks the spot. But I assume the challenge here is finding the entrance, right? Because they're not just going to plow through Reverse Mountain in order to get to Laugh Tale. They're not going to destroy it because Roger didn't do that. So if the coordinates to the 4 road poneglyphs point to the center of Reverse Mountain, for instance, it doesn't bring you any closer to finding how to reach the center of Reverse Mountain. So maybe instead the 4 road poneglyphs point to a location where you can find the entrance to some sort of cave system, entrance into Reverse Mountain itself. This definitely works better. And it's here I want to bring up an important point. I think that Laugh Tale, obviously we'll see what Oda does. This is a huge challenge in simply designing this. But ideally it would be an island that it's practically impossible to stumble upon. There's enough pirates, Yonkos in the New World, capable sailors and crews that eventually somebody would find it by accident. If it was just something that is difficult to find, rather than impossible. So I think that it has to be something more than just simply a place that is difficult to reach. The other half of this, and we speculated this a long time in the past, or we discussed it, right? It's possible that many people have found Laugh Tale, and they just simply don't know that that island is Laugh Tale. Just some random spit of land that the log poses don't point to. They reach there, there's nothing obviously there, and so they assume, look, this is not a place of any importance. But there's some kind of secret there that you would only know to look for if you follow the road poneglyphs. Overall, I dislike this theory, but I suppose it's possible. So I hope at this point that you gather that I'm looking for ways to disappear an island, such that you really can only find it if you already know where it is. It is impossible to stumble upon it by chance, no matter how skilled of a crew sailor you may be. I think that one of the first ideas a lot of people may come up with for how to disappear an island is some sort of devil fruit ability, or awakened devil fruit ability. Think of like the invisible fruit were awakened. And it works similar to the other fruits that we know of that can transform the nature of the things around you. You can literally make an island invisible. I don't think that this particular example works because, assume that it would just be like a poneglyph sitting in the middle of the ocean. You could also ground on an invisible island. You just wouldn't see it before it happened. Another idea I really do like is, for instance, the awakened Yami Yami fruit, a stretch of sea that has no light. Maybe some sort of contrast to Enies Lobby, which has no nighttime. Although this is more of the same of like a place that's difficult to get to rather than an island that actually can't be found. And quite frankly, if something like this existed, I think everybody would know, like, this is obviously where Laugh Tale is. As an example, we may talk about this in just a second. You have the Gates of Justice just before you get to Revujo. The Terai Current, connecting Impel Down and Enies Lobby and Fishpond Island. When you look at a map of this, you see directly in the center the Gates of Justice, the way that they manipulate currents, it creates a giant whirlpool right in the center. The theory here would be relatively straightforward. You have an area of the sea that nobody can explore. Is it a likely location for an island nobody can find? I would say yes. In this, you would have to assume that the world government actually found the 4 road poneglyphs, discovered the location of Laugh Tale, and designed the Gates of Justice so that nobody else would. As much as I want to argue that, look, everyone's looking for Laugh Tale, a lot of big pirates are, this is obviously a place that is not explored enough, so somebody should try. There is definitely some secret there. But at the same time, nobody seems to be looking there. As far as we are aware, there's been no great attacks on any of the Gates of Justice. But the issues here are two-front. First, the island should have been an island that can't be found before the world government discovered the 4 road poneglyphs, so it's already got an element of being hidden. Before the world government gated it off and created defenses at the gates. The other thing is that if there was some secret on Laugh Tale and the world government found it, why would they keep that secret there? And build some elaborate contraption to try and hide the island when we know that they can literally erase them. So I guess that there's some kind of secret here, but not Laugh Tale. But anyway, I didn't make this video to shit on all the ideas about where Laugh Tale could be. It's just more of a discussion of like, look, there's perhaps issues with a lot of the theories that we have. We still might be missing something. Is there a simpler answer for how an island can be hidden? Perhaps in plain sight. A lot is discussed about the Void Century, but a concept that I don't see brought up enough is that it's very apparent that the world of One Piece has been in a dark age. The meaning of Dark Ages is kind of ambiguous, but what I'm saying here, what I'm meaning is that the world of One Piece has culturally, socially, and technologically declined. I think that we know this for a fact because Enel visited the moons, and on the moon he discovered automata. These automata are, give or take, 1,000 years old. This is something like the equivalent of pacifista, already invented 1,000 years before the start of the story. And even further than this, as we visit the moon, we see that there's actual space pirates, like space travel was a thing. Or if you need another example, when Frankie first read the blueprints of Pluton, he couldn't believe that something like that could be created. These blueprints were designed during the Void Century. It may be true that technology is only just now catching up to where it was 1,000 years prior. So it's a relevant question. What happened? I think that it could be related to the Void Century. We know that history has been erased, particularly in reference to the Great or Ancient Kingdom, a prosperous, basically it's put on the level of like the most powerful country at the time. All mention of this kingdom has been scrubbed from history, except for on the poneglyphs. In order to accomplish this, you had to burn a lot of books. And this may also be related to lost technologies. Imagine, say, that the Great or Ancient Kingdom had their version of Vegapunk. Every book written by him or everything related to him lost to history because of his connection to the Ancient Kingdom. Or maybe it's more purposeful. Has the world government been intentionally stifling technological advancement for the last 800 years? Was it by design that technologies were erased and then any progress to develop them again confronted? This actually has some relevance to conspiracy theories in the real world. Again, these aren't true necessarily, they're conspiracy theories, but you hear like, for instance, intentional efforts to stifle the development of hydrogen cars. An interesting omission in the world of One Piece, there's lots of really cool things being developed by Vegapunk right now. Pacifista, you literally have a giant mecha robot with a jetpack. Frankie, as best as we can gather, literally designed a propulsion system using cola for the Thousand Sunny that gives it the ability to jump through the ocean. But one thing that we haven't seen in the world of One Piece is mechanical planes. Almost everything that flies so far has been related to a Devil Fruit ability, Enel's Arc Maxim. Caesar has a gas balloon. From the movie Strong World, Shiki uses his powers to fly. In another case, you see Duval and his crew use flying fish to fly, using a creature that exists. Planes may not exist for convenient reasons. Simply, Oda doesn't want them in the story because they affect the dynamics of everything in ways that he does not like. At the same time, you could potentially justify it or give a reason, a story reason, for the fact that there are no planes. The world government halts scientific progress on this front. They don't want planes. It has been invented, it has been designed, and then erased. Getting into the whys of this would be tedious, complicated, and in large part unnecessary. But if you need just one reason among many why a government might restrict the advancement of technology, look at warfare. Advancements in this field are often kept under lock and key for fear of the technology falling into your enemy's hands. Essentially, what I'm speculating is that it's possible that the world government knows how to build planes, but they're not ready to share this information or for it to be proliferated in any way. And I think that we may already have an explicit example of something like this. We saw in the recent chapters. Emu erased an island with something from the sky. A lot of people speculate, we don't know for sure yet, but a lot of people speculate that this is actually a flying machine. If it isn't operated using a Devil Fruit, it would be the first of its kind. There isn't 1,000 of these flying around the Grand Line in the various seas because the world government does not want anybody to even know about it. So we're talking about dangerous technologies and weapons falling into the wrong hands. Should remind you a lot of the ancient weapons. Wasn't that the world government's entire fear about these things? If we assume that the flying object was an ancient weapon, perhaps Uranus, then likely there was a stepwise process of developing it. And if it flies, flight is included in that. Outside of the absurdism of One Piece, you can consider this to be a crazy bomber. Flight can also be used to destroy your ace in the hull. Fighter pilots, for instance. You now have a realistic reason why the world government might restrict the advancements of certain technologies, for fear that ultimately it will lead to the destruction of the world. This also is very relevant to actual human history. When you talk about the ancient weapons, a real-life comparison for something like those in the fears inspired by them would be atomic bombs. If an ancient weapon can be technologically created, then it can also be mass-produced. We're living in this reality, and the fear is apocalypse, the end of the world. I half wonder whether or not some sort of apocalypse occurred during the Void Century with the use of advanced technology. This has me think about Vegapunk, right? The world government has a hit out now, is planning to assassinate Vegapunk. And the reason is not entirely clear, although you have some evidence that maybe he is a member of or associated with the Revolutionary Army, so that could be a justifiable reason, but it could also be that the world government feels as if they have gone too far. And I actually prefer this interpretation than the world government knows something about Vegapunk, because whatever the reason is for this assassination attempt, the world government is not even telling Cypherpole. If it was something as simple as, we know that Vegapunk is a member of the Revolutionary Army, Cypherpole would know. There's no reason to hide this intel. It feels like it should be a deeper, more complex or convoluted reason. And it also has me thinking about Vegapunk's island, all of his inventions, that he doesn't appear to have enough resources in order to disperse them, make them commercially available. It makes you half wonder whether the world government wants these things commercially available, such that Vegapunk resorts to piracy so that he can get the things that he needs. But anyway, I swear that this video is about Laugh-Tale. It's about the island that cannot be found, and why can't it be found? And there is a reason that we've pivoted to Vegapunk and we've pivoted to technology. Because I think during the Void Century, the world of One Piece was far more similar to the One Piece world today than it was at any point over the last 8 centuries. I told you that the quote at the beginning of the video would come up again in a very unusual way, but the people of the One Piece world and Vegapunk haven't learned from history because the Void Century has been erased. So the mistakes of the Void Century are doomed to be repeated, and this mistake is the advancement of technology. I know that we've seen places like Shandora, which are essentially a time capsule, and they appeared to be very primitive. But I truly believe that overall during the Void Century, it was far more advanced. And this would be doubly true for the most powerful, advanced country of the time period, the Great or Ancient Kingdom. Clover tells us that the only place on the Earth that mentions the Great or Ancient Kingdom is on the poneglyphs. He speculates that because of this, likely the poneglyphs were created by them to tell their side of the story. We know that after the Void Century, the poneglyphs were created and spread across the world, all leading to an island that literally nobody can find, unless they already know where it is. I think that a component here that not many people have considered, but is definitely worthy of considering, is whether or not Laugh-Tale is hidden through the use of advanced technology. As we visit Vegapunk here on Egghead, he's designed holograms. He's also designed means to physically interact with light or with these holograms. Could this same technology be used to help conceal Laugh-Tale? And is that the point of introducing Vegapunk now, aside from what he tells us about devil fruits? In my opinion, there would be no more effective way to hide an island than through the use of advanced technology. But I'm not suggesting that this is the only way in which it's hidden. There can be other factors as well, but when people talk about this, they don't throw this component in, and I feel like we should, especially now. And I guess the last thing that I'll say here is that I suggest that everyone watch Laputa Castle in the Sky, a Studio Ghibli film, which I adore, I love, from the 1980s. No doubt Oda watched this as a kid, and again, if you watch it, it will be abundantly clear that that is the genesis of One Piece. That was the thing which inspired Oda to make a pirate story. I could make an entire video about it, point to the things from the story, but in terms of its presentation, its energy, that is the genesis of One Piece. And in that story, the island in the sky that could not be found, the legend, was very interrelated with lost technology. But anyway, that's all I have to say. For those that don't know, my book, The Booms Volume 1, will be released on November 4th. It's currently available for pre-order. There will be links in the description as well as pinned in the comments. I've worked on this a really long time, and I'm excited for you guys to finally have the chance to read it. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, click the bell to be notified. Even though I'm writing a book, okay, we're still going to be covering One Piece until the very end. Count on it. But yeah, guys, you know what it is, and as always, have a wonderful day.